Ciao, I'm Mario, the Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm standing next to what used to be my sister's Fiat 500. Not because it's not a Fiat 500 anymore, but because it's not my sister's car anymore. She bought a new Kia about a year ago, and this car was passed down to her nephew, who incidentally is also my nephew, and this car has developed a little problem, a common problem, something it already had. It has a failed ignition coil that I'm going to swap over, because while his rich aunt gave him a car, his poor uncle will help him with maintenance. So I ordered a new ignition coil. I know it's the ignition coil. I have it here. It's by Hella. It's not one of the products I usually would buy, because even though Hella is a major brand, this thing is made in China, and I would prefer something made in not China. But then again, this is what we get, and the church bells are ringing. The church bells are ringing because it's kind of Christmas morning, but whatever. First we need to get the airbox out of the way. I already unbolted it, and I also know it's cylinder 1 because it used to be misfire on cylinder 4. I swapped the ignition coil, it migrated to cylinder 1, so I know this ignition coil is bad. So I've loosened everything, I just need to take it off now, which is easier said than done. Okay, it's easy. We can just take to the front one alone. Yep. One faulty ignition coil, champion. One new ignition coil, which is made by Hella in China. And I don't think it's made by Hella. It's most likely made by some Chinese OEM, and they stamped the Hella name on it. Because this one was, I believe, 31 francs delivered. And it was only this expensive because I paid 9 francs for expedited shipping. So this is basically a 20 buck ignition coil. I also ordered some other ones, some better ones from NGK1, not because they're made in Japan, I found out they're made in Italy, but the better ones cost 36 francs. And I ordered them, this is from Amazon, the other one is from an online part supplier. I didn't buy them from the local Fiat dealership or from a local part supplier, because one of these here in Switzerland costs 120 francs, which is insane. So let's put it in. Go in. Let's put the connector back on. Go in. Let's see that all the connectors are on. On. I mean, it really needs to be on. On and on. These are all on. Let's fasten it back with its nut. It's not a nut, it's a bolt actually. It's a 10 millimeter. All the bolts here are 10 millimeters, which is kind of nice. This is fastened down, this is fastened down, this is fastened down, this is fastened down. This is the one I replaced 2 years ago. This is the one I replaced today. And these two I don't know, but I bought 2 more. So we'll either replace them preemptively or I'll put them in the trunk as spares, because this is an easy job to do even if you're on the road. Of course, it's not great if you're in the rain or something like that, but I mean, whatever. Let's fasten the airbox back down. Is this supposed to be this loose? Don't know. Possibly yes, because the airbox is on some sort of rubber standoff, so this is basically just to keep it from flying away. Yep. Loose, but okay. Let's see whether the car starts. I mean, I'm sure it will. How does it run? Seems to run okay. Let's go for a test drive. You see, my sister gifted him the car. I gifted him the car stereo, because I know a teenager cannot have a car without, Bluetooth and Android Auto and CarPlay. And of course, this has got full Android on it, so it's even a nice big screen. You lose the air vents here because the screen basically takes up everything, but I think it's a rather nice integration, and it's a fairly big screen. So, and I think it's also quite a nice screen. I think this screen is nicer than the one I have in my Porsche, even though the one in the Porsche was way more expensive than this. So yeah, I'm hot, so I'm gonna take off my jacket. Much better. Yes, and now we'll wear the seatbelt in a stupid way, because otherwise it's gonna rub against the microphone, it's gonna create stupid noises. So that's it. So yeah. Okay, let's see how the car is running very nice right now, very smooth. Let's see. Where's the reverse? I think it's here, right? No, it's here. Oh my god. Ha! The screen turned black. Because this radio comes with a reverse camera that I haven't installed, because on the Fiat 500 it's kind of nasty to install, because it goes into the tailgate, and that means you have to route it through the headliner and then through the tailgate. It's an annoying job. We will do it at some point, because at least this is a camera that seems to automatically receive the signal to turn on. Unlike, oh, maybe not. No, it does. Unlike my Porsche, where I need to tap a cable in order to activate the camera. The only thing is, I don't know if the radio can power the camera, because if the radio can power the camera, then it's all good. If the radio cannot power the camera, then I have to tap one of the rear lights, and the lights are not in the tailgate, so I need to do a cabling nightmare, and yeah, that's not great. But yeah, it would enable the camera if it was installed, so I need to really put that in. Even though this car doesn't really require a camera, but I think it's always helpful to have it. And I don't need this high ventilation. How do I change this? And 18 degrees is a bit. So, let's see how the car runs. Oh wow, the turning circle of this car is insanely large. And my nephew, he doesn't understand anything about cars, but he phoned me up last week telling me, Uncle, the car, it doesn't run properly. The check engine light is flashing, bad sign, and the car has no power. I told him, well, no power, yes, it's a Fiat 500, so that makes sense, but the flashing check engine light means you shouldn't drive it anymore. And it was because effectively an ignition coil had failed. This is the third time an ignition coil has failed on this car. The first time, when my sister still owned it, she brought it to the garage, and the garage only replaced one ignition coil, which I didn't understand back then. Then I think a couple of years later, it failed again. And this is when I replaced it, and I also replaced only the one, because first my sister needed the car fixed quickly, so I had to buy it from a local shop, and I paid $120 for it, which is insanely high, and I wouldn't replace all the ignition coils for $120 each. So I did the one. Also, my sister was already considering getting a new car, so this car, she didn't want to invest too much money, and this is why only 2 of the 4 ignition coils have been replaced on this car. But now I've replaced, I replaced a third one, but I don't know if this is one that has already been replaced previously. So I replaced this, and then I also ordered 2 more in order to replace them as well, because the other 2 are going to fail, or at least one of those. The reason why I ordered that many is because here in Switzerland you cannot really buy car parts, at least not on the internet. There's either these B2B dealers, like there is a company called Derendinger, they basically supply OEM parts to all the garages, but they will not sell to consumers, which I absolutely hate. Then there are like the small parts shops, and by small parts shops I mean they have 10,000 of parts, but they are still very, very local. Their internet sites are like crap, and you cannot really find what you need there. I don't particularly like them, and also they have the same prices as dealerships, so it's insane, $120 for an ignition coil. In Switzerland, if you want to buy parts, basically, oh wow, they put a radar right here, bastards. In Switzerland, if you want to buy parts, you have to basically buy them from abroad. So there's either like Delticom, the company who owns Reifen Direct, which is the biggest tire seller in the world probably. They have like these online shops that sell you parts, but they're from Germany, which means they want like $35 in shipping, and it takes usually a week or longer to arrive, which sucks. So I did order from Delticom in this case, but I made a large order. I ordered basically all the service parts for this car, because my Christmas gift to my nephew was, I will gift you the first service to the car, with the caveat that you have to do it yourself. I mean, I will obviously help him, but we will do an oil change, probably the spark plugs. Let's see if we need to do brakes. I will have to check the service records, but we will do the first service ourselves, which I reckon will save him around $1,000. Because if you bring this car to a garage to have a service, it's most likely going to be $1,000. Most likely around like $400 in parts and $600 in labor. And the garages are very expensive here in Switzerland. And I bought all the parts needed for like $200, and the rest is just our time. So this will be all good. And because also I want to enable him to work on his car, something I personally don't do enough, but he's an apprentice, so he makes very little money because apprenticeships are paid basically almost a symbolic number. In this case, I think he earns around 1,000 francs per month or something like this, which, you know, for a youngster is not bad, but it's certainly not something that's livable in Switzerland. I think a minimum wage here is like 3,800 or something like that. So obviously he is not really swimming in cash. And if he learns to do the basic maintenance himself, he can basically maintain this car cheaply, because I reckon this is a great car for a young person. It's, I think, reasonably reliable. This is still one of the old Fiat fire engines. They are tried and tested, they are reliable engines. I mean, they came out the same year as I was born, 1984, so they must be good. And these cars are basically, I'm not saying bulletproof, but they are very easy to maintain. And even if you have to work on them, they are easy to get to because it's a small engine. And now I'm in a tunnel. This is the only tunnel in town. So I managed to drive into the only tunnel in town. I could have driven everywhere, but I drove into the tunnel. I guess it's for old time's sakes, right? It's this old car, and this old car has 130,000 kilometers. Because, I mean, this car is from 2008. This was one of the first Fiat 500s delivered to Switzerland back then. And now it's almost 16 years old. So my sister didn't drive it a lot. Also the reason why I recommended she buy an electric car next, which she did. She bought a Kia Niro EV. Sight unseen based on my recommendation, because the new model was not available yet when she ordered it. I think she ordered it like in September last year and got it delivered in January. And she kind of likes it. I think she's very happy with it. And, you know, my nephew likes having his own car. And it's a manual, which was a bit difficult for him because we did a lot of driving school in this car. So for him, it was not only learn to drive, but also learn to shift and properly drive the car, because he did, of course, the driving test on an automatic, because in Switzerland, it's not mandatory to make the test on a manual to drive a manual anymore. It was, I think, until 2 or 3 years ago. But right now, you can drive a manual without having ever made any exercise on a manual. So of course he did the test on an automatic, so it's less stressful, it's less chances to stall the car, it's easier for driving test, which he passed on the first trial, which is more than I can say. But yeah, so it's his car. It runs really nicely, and I'm a bit perplexed because it's really nice weather today. It's 9 degrees and today is the 25th of December. It's Christmas. And I remember on past Christmas, now you might think, Switzerland, Christmas, it doesn't snow. Actually, it almost never snows on Christmas here. In fact, I just received a memory from Google Photos or something like that from 2015, because in the past, I used to have convertible cars, and on many occasions I would drive with the top open on Christmas, because it used to be like 15 degrees Celsius, and it was really perfect weather. Even today, the weather is very nice, the sun is out, but it's only 9 degrees, so if I had a convertible, I wouldn't open the top. But I don't have convertibles anymore, because I'm bald and convertible, bad combination. But I think that's it. The car is fixed. I didn't go too much into detail on how to do it first, because it's super easy to do. And I just used a cheap OBD2 code scanner to, scan for errors. I was sure it was the ignition coil. And when it showed me a misfire on cylinder 4, I just swapped out cylinder 1 and 4, the two ignition coils, and then the misfire moved to cylinder 1. So I knew it was a bad ignition coil. I ordered it and I installed it, and that fixed the issue. Very, very simple. I actually did a more in-depth video 2 years ago when I replaced the ignition coil for the first time. Even though I'm not exactly sure what there is to go in depth of, because it's basically unscrew, get it out, get it in, screw back in. That's it. Very simple. Oh, does this have apps? It does, right? This is a full Android. It's actually a very nice system. I like this a lot. I think it's better than the one in Porsche. Oh, and when I installed this, I ran into the exact same problem I had with my Porsche. I had no sound. My Porsche, I had no bass. Here I had no sound at all, because again, the radio would not turn on the amplifier, because this car has an Interscope sound system. It has an amplifier, and so I needed to tap in a wire in order to give the signal to the amplifier to turn on. So, but it works now. I think it does. I have no idea how to remove the volume. I don't want to be content striked. Why doesn't this have buttons? Jesus Christ. It has steering wheel controls. Right. Steering wheel controls, right? This radio doesn't have buttons. This is much better on my Porsche, which has physical controls, but the car has steering wheel controls, which work perfectly. But I think I have been blabbling on for way too long. This video needs to end, because anyway, this was a no content video. I'd done a swap of an ignition coil before, so that's not really interesting content. I just want to give a little update on the car, knowing that it's still around, it's still in the family, it's still put to good use. I hope my nephew will do a lot more kilometers than my sister did in the car, because at 130,000, this thing is basically new. I mean, really, none of my cars have this low mileage. None of my cars. Yeah. And yes, also show you the Android thing I installed here, which I think integrates really nicely. Has a very nice screen. I think it's 9 inches. It integrates with the steering wheel control. And if I had connected my phone, I could even use more than just the radio. So this is that. This is the Fiat 500. Oh, let's try the sport button. No, still doesn't have any power, but it runs perfectly. So the ignition coil fixed the issue. An ignition coil that cost me 31 Swiss franc delivered from Amazon, instead of going 120 francs from the Fiat dealer or a local parts shop. The two more ignition coils, the better quality ones, the NGKs I ordered from Delticom from Germany, which are bound to arrive like next week, they cost way more. They were 36 francs each. So for what here in Switzerland you pay for one ignition coil, if you buy them on the internet, not buying the cheapest junk you can find, you can actually have, all the remaining ignition coil replaced. So, I mean, yes. And also, this is a cheap car. This car is 15, almost 16 years old. And my mantra is these cars cannot be maintained for too much money. I mean, can't need maintenance, but this car, I reckon, is worth maybe 3 grand, maybe 2 grand, let's say 3 grand. Spending $1,000 on a service, that seems a bit too much. So I reckon these are the cars a younger person can maintain themselves because they don't need a lot of oil, they're very easy to work on, they can do everything themselves and keep them on the road for a long time, because otherwise if you have to spend money every time, a lot of money, if something is broken, this car is going to get junked real quick. So yeah, that's now the real end of the video. Comment down below, what do you think of the car? And also, today is Christmas, the 25th of December. So if you believe in this sort of thing and celebrate it, I want to wish you a very happy winter solstice. Even though this video is probably gonna get released in March or something like that. Anyway, have a nice day, and thank you for watching. Bye.